Hello students, have a nice day. Standard 10th. Today we are going to see the story The Boy Who Broke the Bank. The writer of the story is Ruskin Bond. At first we are going to get some information about the writer. The writer's name is Ruskin Bond. 1934. He is an Indian author of British descent. He lives with his adopted family in London, in Missouri, India. The Indian Council for Child Education has organized his role in the growth of children's literature in India. He got the Sahitya Academy Award in 1992 for Our Streets Still Grow in Dehra. He was awarded Padma Shri and Padma Bhushan respectively in 1999 and 2014. Written by Ruskin Bond, The Boy Who Broke the Bank is a humorous story. The specialty of the writer is that his writing is create realistic picture of the characters and surrounding in simple words. या पाठामध्ये लेखकाने अफवांची ताकद व त्यांचे समाजावर होणारे परिणाम यांचे चित्रण केले आहे. र्युमर, वी मस्ट नो द वर्ड र्युमर. मराठीमध्ये या शब्दाला आपण अफवा असे म्हणतो. अफवा म्हणजेच चुकीची बातमी. चुकीच्या बातम्या ह्या अत्यंतिक वेगाने समाजामध्ये पसरतात आणि या बातम्यांचे समाजावरती अत्यंत वाईट असे परिणाम होतात. हे कसे हे आपण या स्टोरीमध्ये पाहणार आहोत. स्टुडंट्स, now I am going to read this story paragraph by paragraph and we will see the explanation of the story. Nathu grumbled to himself as he swept the steps of the People Nagar Bank owned by Seth Govindram. He used the small broom hurriedly and carelessly, and the dust, after rising in a cloud above his head, settled down again on the steps. As Nathu was banging his pan against a dustbin, Sitaram, the washerman's son, passed by. Students, here in the first paragraph, two characters are included. These two characters in the story are the major characters because of whom the rumor spreads all over the society. Nathu is a sweeper boy. Here Nathu is a sweeper boy and the name of the bank is People Nagar Bank. You know who is the owner of the bank? Yes, Seth Govindram is the owner of the bank. Now look at the sentence. He used the small broom hurriedly and carelessly. I am going to read this line once again. He used the small broom hurriedly and carelessly. Now tell me, two adverbs are there in this sentence. Which are there? Yes, you are absolutely right. The adjectives are hurriedly and carelessly. या गोष्टीतील मुलगा नथू हा बँकेत सफाई करणारा मुलगा होता आणि काही कारणास्तव तो वैतागला होता आणि वैतागाच्या भरातच तो बँकेच्या पायऱ्या झाडत होता. त्याच वेळी त्याचा मित्र सीताराम त्या ठिकाणाहून जात होता. Who was the Sitaram? Sitaram was washerman's son who is passing by that road. सिद्धू हातातील सुपली कचरा डब्यावर आपटत होता आणि त्याच वेळेला सीताराम त्या ठिकाणाहून जात होता. Now we are going to the next paragraph. Sitaram was on his delivery round. He had a bundle of freshly pressed clothes balanced on his head. Don't raise such dust, he called out to Nathu. Are you annoyed because they are still refusing to pay you an extra 2 rupees a month? He asked. नथू हातातील सुपली कचरा डब्यावर जोरजोरात आपटत असतानाच सीताराम त्याला म्हणाला, Are you annoyed because they are still refusing to pay you an extra 2 rupees a month? म्हणजेच त्याला असं म्हणायचं होतं की तुला महिन्याला 2 रुपये जास्तीचा पगार बँकवाले देत नाहीत म्हणून तू वैतागला आहेस काय? I don't wish to talk about it, complained the sweeper boy. I haven't even received my regular pay. And this is the 20th of month. Who would think a bank would hold up a poor man's salary? As soon as I get my money, I'm off. Not another week. I work in this place. And Nathu banged the pan against the dustbin several times just to emphasize his point and giving himself confidence. अशा पद्धतीनं वैतागलेल्या नथूनं परत परत आपल्या हातातील सुपली त्या कचरा कुंडीवरती आदळली आणि आपलं म्हणणं जास्त प्रभावीपणे सीतारामला सांगण्याचा प्रयत्न केला. Emphasize, here the word EMPHASIZE, emphasize means to draw attention. Now look at this sentence. Here in this paragraph, one sentence is there. Nathu was banging his pan. Once again, look at this sentence. Nathu was banging his pan. What tense is there in this sentence? Yes, absolutely right. There is continuous past tense in this sentence. Now we have to make this sentence in present continuous tense. Will you? Yes, you are absolutely right. Nathu is banging his pan. Okay? अशा पद्धतीनं या परिस्थितीमध्ये वैतागलेला नथू हा त्या बँकेतून काम सोडून जाण्याच्या प्रयत्नात होता. Well, I wish you luck, said Sitaram. I will keep a lookout for any jobs that might suit you. And he plodded barefoot along the road, the big bundle of clothes hiding most of his head and shoulders. At the fourth home he visited, Sitaram heard lady of the house mentioned that she was in need of a sweeper. Tying his bundle together, he said, I know of the sweeper boy who's looking for work. He can start from next month. He's with the bank just now, but they aren't giving him his pay and he wants to leave. Now, Sitaram reached to the house. There is a lady. Sitaram knew that lady wanted a sweeper boy for her daily working in her house. Sitaram told that lady that he knew the boy who needed the job. In this way, he became very much happy because he was helping his friend as well as that lady. Here, the word PLODDED, plodded, means walk heavily, and again the adjective is given for Sitaram is that barefoot. Barefoot means a person who is without shoes is called barefooted. Now here another phrase is there in this paragraph, looking for. The main phrase is to look for. Do you know what is the meaning of this phrase in Marathi? To look for means शोध घेणे. Now make your own sentence with help of this phrase, to look for. Okay, I am telling you one sentence. Ravi is looking for his lost pen. Okay. Now we are going to the next paragraph. Is that so? Said Mrs. Srivastava. Well, tell him to come and see me tomorrow. And Sitaram, glad that he has been of service to both customer and his friend, hoisted his bag on his shoulders and went his way. Mrs. Srivastava had to do some shopping. She gave instruction to the ayah about looking after the baby and told the cook not to be late with the midday meal. Then she set out for the People Nagar marketplace to make her customary tour of the cloth shop. Now look here what's happened. The new character is added here in the story, that is Mrs. Srivastava. Mrs. Srivastava is a lady who needed a sweeper boy in her house. She was going to the market, and that is why she told instructions to the family members. Here one Marathi word is added as it is. It is the speciality of the story. So many non-English words and which are actually the Marathi words are introduced in the story. The one of these words is Aya. Do you know what is the meaning of Aya? Aya means, in English, we can say it as caretaker of the children. Now, Mrs. Srivastav wanted to do some shopping. And here the bold letter word is customary. Do you know customary means? Customary means usual, name. The routine shopping she wanted to do. That is why she was going out of the home to the market for some shoppings. Here another thing, looking after. Look at the sentence. She gave instruction to the Aya about looking after the baby. Here the new phrase is added. The phrase is looking after. Main phrase is to look after. Do you know its Marathi meaning? To look after means ची काळजी घेणे. Now make your own sentence with help of this phrase, to look after. Mothers always look after their children. Okay? It is the starting point of the spreading of the rumor. We are going to see the next paragraph. A large shady tamarind tree grew at one end of the bazaar, and it was here that Mrs. Srivastav found her friend Mrs. Bhushan sheltering from the heat. Mrs. Bhushan was fanning herself with a large handkerchief. She complained of the summer, which she affirmed was definitely the hottest in the history of Peoplenagar. She then showed Mrs. Srivastav a sample of the cloth she was going to buy, and for 5 minutes they discussed its shade, texture, design. Having exhausted this topic, Mrs. Srivastav said, "Do you know, my dear, that Seth Govindram's bank can't even pay its employees? Only this morning I heard a complaint from their sweeper who hasn't received his wages for over a month." Now listen, the second step of spreading the rumor. Here Mrs. Srivastav got the news that Peoplenagar's bank owners are not ready to pay even the sweeper boy. She told the same news to her friend Mrs. Bhushan. Where did they meet? Will you tell me the answer? Where did they meet? They meet a large shady tamarind tree at the end of the bazaar. Do you know the word bazaar? Is it English word? No. Yes, it is non-English word. We use the word market for bazaar. So they meet there under the tree. It was very hot day. It was very hot day. Mrs. Bhushan was fanning herself with a large handkerchief. Look at this word, fanning. F-A-N plus noun plus ing. Fanning. And the second word, shelter plus ing. Sheltering. Now, Mrs. Bhushan was fanning herself with a large handkerchief. But at the same time, she was complaining of the summer because it was very hot day, which she affirmed. Affirmed means atyanta vaitagleली होती, was definitely the hottest day in history of Peoplenagar. She then showed Mrs. Srivastav whatever she had purchased from the market. She showed the sample of clothes she wanted to buy. And what are the, will you tell me the related words to the cloth? Yes, absolutely right. Shade, texture and design. Mrs. Srivastav had got exhausted with the topic of that cloth. At firstly, she was exhausted because of the hot summer. She was waiting for her husband. At the same time, she told the rumor to Mrs. Bhushan that said Govindram's bank can't even pay its employees. She got the news in the same morning and she told the same news to her friend. Shocking, remarked Mrs. Bhushan. If they can't pay the sweeper, they must be in bad way. None of the others could be getting paid either. She left Mrs. Srivastava at the tamarind tree and went in search of her husband, who was sitting front of Kamal Kishore's photography shop, talking with the owner. Now, Mrs. Srivastava went to her husband. Where was Mrs. Srivastava's husband? Mrs. Srivastava's husband was sitting in front of Kamal Kishore's photography shop, talking with the owner. So there you are, cried Mrs. Bhushan. I have been looking for you for almost an hour. Where did you disappear? Nowhere, replied Mrs. Bhushan. Had you remained stationary in one shop, I might have found you. But you go from one shop to another like a bee in a flower garden. Here, the conversation is a typical conversation between husband and wife. काय सांगतं हे बघा, हे भाषांतर आपण जर मराठीत केलं तर काय सांगतं, तर मिसेस भूषण त्यांच्या नवऱ्याला शोधत असताना त्या म्हणाल्या, कुठे होता तुम्ही एवढा वेळ? त्याच्यावर त्यांचा पती त्यांना म्हणाला, कुठं नाही, इथंच होतो. तू जर एके ठिकाणी स्थिर एकाच दुकानात शॉपिंग करत असतीस तर कदाचित मी तुला सापडलो असतो, पण तू एखाद्या बागेमधून फिरणाऱ्या मधमाशीसारखी या दुकानातून त्या दुकानात फिरत असल्यामुळे तू मला लवकर सापडू शकली नाहीस. मिसेस श्रीवास्तव said, "Don't start grumbling. The heat is trying in. I don't know what is happening to people Nagar. Even the bank is about to go bankrupt." "What is that?" said Kamal Kishore, sitting up suddenly. "Which bank?" "Why, the People Nagar Bank, of course. I hear they have stopped paying employees. Don't tell me you have an account there, Mr. Kamal Kishore." Now look here, the conversation between Mr. and Mrs. Srivastava heard Mr. Kishore and he became surprised because of that news. Then he confirmed about the news and said, "No, but my neighbor has," he exclaimed, and he called out over the low partition to the keeper of the barber shop next door, "Deepachan, have you heard the latest? The People Nagar Bank is about to collapse. You had better get your money out as soon as you can." In this way, Mr. Kishore tried to tell the rumor to his partner or his neighbor, Deepachan. What was Deepachan? Deepachan was barber. And Mr. Kishore advised Deepachan to take out the money from the bank as soon as he can. Deepachan, who was cutting the hair of an elderly gentleman, was so startled that his hand shook and he nicked his customer's right ear. The customer yelled with pain and distress. Pain because of the cut and distress because of the awful news he had just heard. Now look, Deepachan was in his work. What was Deepachan doing? Deepachan was cutting the hair of elderly gentleman. As he heard the news about the bankrupt, he got startled and his hand shook and he nicked his customer's right ear. Deepachan त्याचं दाढी करण्याचं काम करत असतानाच ही अचानक शॉकिंग न्यूज ऐकल्यामुळं त्याच्या उजवा हात थोडासा थरथरला आणि त्यामुळं त्या कस्टमरच्या उजव्या कानाला थोडासा काप गेला. कस्टमर yelped with pain and distress. Pain because of the cut and distress because of awful news he had just heard. म्हणजे बघा या अफवेचा लोकांच्या वरती कुठल्या दिशेने परिणाम होत होता. With one side of his neck still unshaven, he sped across the road to the general merchant stores where there was a telephone. एकाच बाजूचं त्याचं दाढी पूर्ण झाली असतानाच तो तसाच त्या खुर्चीवरून पळाला आणि तो तडक टेलिफोनच्या बूथपाशी जाऊन पोहोचला. ही डायल्ड सेट गोविंदराम्स नंबर. त्यानं लगेच सरळ त्या बँक ओनरला म्हणजेच गोविंदरामला फोन केला. द सेट वॉज नॉट ॲट होम. वेअर वॉज ही देन? द सेट वॉज हॉलिडेइंग इन काश्मीर. ओ वॉज दॅट सो? द एल्डरली जेंटलमॅन डिड नॉट बिलीव्ह इट. He hurried back to the barber shop and told Deepchand, "The bird has flown." त्या जेंटलमननं सेठ गोविंदराम याला फोन लावण्याचा प्रयत्न केला, परंतु त्यानं त्याचा फोन रिसीव्ह केला नाही आणि त्याला फोनवरती असं समजलं की गोविंदराम हा सुट्ट्या घालवण्यासाठी काश्मीरला गेला होता. त्यावरती तो जेंटलमन परत त्या दुकानामध्ये दीपचंदकडे आला आणि त्यानं सांगितलं द बर्ड हॅज फ्लोन. म्हणजेच आपण ज्या माणसाकडं या सगळ्या घटनेची चौकशी करणार होतो तो माणूस पळालेला आहे. सेठ गोविंदराम हॅज लेफ्ट टाउन. डेफिनेटली इट मीन्स कोलॅप्स. ज्या अर्थी गोविंदराम या गावातून पळालेला आहे त्या अर्थी डेफिनेटली द बँक वुड हॅव बीन कोलॅप्स्ड. शी वॉज डॅम शुअर अबाउट द न्यूज. And then he dashed out of the shop, making a beeline for his office and checkbook. Look at this sentence once again. Definitely it means a collapse. And then he dashed out of the shop, making a beeline for his office and checkbook. तडकच BEELINE beeline या शब्दाचा अर्थ डायरेक्ट रूट. तडकच तो आपलं चेकबुक घेतलं आणि बँकेच्या दिशेनं पळाला. द न्यूज स्प्रेड थ्रू द बाजार विथ द रॅपिडिटी ऑफ फॉरेस्ट फायर. फ्रॉम द जनरल मर्चंट्स इट्स ट्रॅव्हल्ड टू द शॉप, सर्क्युलेटेड अमंग्स द कस्टमर्स अँड देन स्प्रेड्स विथ देम इन व्हेरियस डायरेक्शन्स टू द बिटल सेलर, टू द टेलर, द फ्री वेंडर, द ज्वेलर, द बेगर सिटिंग ऑन द पेमेंट. Can you get it? All over the bazaar, the news was spreading with rapid speed. The news spread through all the customers. Then beetle sellers. Do you know what is the meaning of word beetle sellers? पानवाले. Then tailor, pre-vendor, फेरीवाले, jewelers, म्हणजेच ज्वेलरी दुकानवाले, beggars. Even though the beggars also knew that news. Beggar BEGGAR. बेगर मीन्स भिकारी. अगदी भिकाऱ्यांच्यापर्यंत सुद्धा ही न्यूज जाऊन पोचली. ओल्ड गणपत द बेगर हॅड अ क्रुक्ड लेग. ही हॅड बीन स्क्वॅटेड ऑन द पेमेंट फॉर इयर्स, कॉलिंग फॉर आर्म्स. इन द इव्हिनिंग समवन वुड कम विथ अ बॅरो अँड टेक हिम अवे. ही हॅड never been known to walk, but now on learning that the bank was about to collapse, Ganpat astonished everyone, leaping to his feet and actually running at the top speed in the direction of the bank. It soon became known that he had 1,000 rupees in saving. Look here, what is actually the humor in this paragraph? Here, this paragraph gives us description about the beggar. What is the name of the beggar? Ganpat. Yes. What is his specialty? He had a crooked leg. एक मोडलेला पाय असणारा किंवा वाकलेला पाय असणारा भिकारी त्या परिसरामध्ये राहत होता. त्याचं नाव गणपत होतं. He had been squatting on the pavement for years. Squatting, SQUAT. Squatting means पाय दुमडून बसणे. तर तो गणपत पाय दुमडून नेहमी भीक मागण्यासाठी बसत होता. In the evening, someone would come with a barrow and take him away. हा त्याचा रोजचा दिनक्रम होता की दिवसभर तो त्या ठिकाणी बसून भीक मागायचा आणि नंतर सायंकाळच्या वेळी कोणीतरी येऊन त्याला हातगाडीवरून घेऊन जायचं. यामुळं सर्व परिसरातील लोकांची अशी धारणा होती की गणपत हा खरोखरच लंगडा भिकारी आहे. बट व्हॉट वॉज ॲक्च्युअली हॅपन्ड अबाउट गणपत ॲट द एंड? ही हॅड नेवर बीन नोन टू वॉक. सगळ्यांना असं वाटत होतं की त्याला चालता येत नाही. बट नाऊ ऑन लर्निंग दॅट द बँक वॉज अबाउट टू कोलॅप्स, गणपत ॲस्टॉनिश्ड एव्हरीवन. गणपतनं सर्वांनाच आश्चर्याचा एक धक्का दिला. काय? लिपिंग टू हिज फीट अँड ॲक्च्युअली रनिंग ॲट टॉप स्पीड इन द डायरेक्शन ऑफ द बँक. त्यानं त्याच्या त्या दुमडलेल्या पायावरूनच अशी झपकन उडी घेतली आणि तो बँकेच्या दिशेनं पळायला लागला. इट सून बिकेम नोन दॅट ही हॅड 1,000 रुपीज इन सेव्हिंग. काही काळानंतर असं लक्षात आलं की गणपतचे सुद्धा काही हजार रुपये बँकेमध्ये जमा होते. Men stood in groups at street corners discussing the situation. People Nagar seldom had a crisis, seldom or never had floods, earthquakes or drought. And the imminent crash of the People Nagar bank set everyone talking and speculating and rushing about in a frenzy. Some boasted of their foresightedness, congratulating themselves on having already taken out their money or on never having put any in. Others speculated on the reasons for the crash, putting it all down to excess indulged in by Seth Govindram. In this way, all the people of People Nagar were discussing about that rumor. Someone were saying that Govindram has flown away. Someone means all were making their own explanation about the event. No such an event was happened in case of People Nagar before that point. Some earthquakes or droughts or imminent crash were such types of faced by People Nagar, but that incident was the new for People Nagar. सर्वजण आपापल्या परीने या बातमीला दुजोरा देण्याचा प्रयत्न करीत होते. स्पिक्युलेटिंग मीन्स तर्कवितर्क करत. प्रत्येकजण आपल्या आपल्या तर्कबुद्धीनं या इव्हेंटविषयी तर्क करत होता. ऑल वेअर फ्रेंझी. फ्रेंझी मीन्स सैरभैर. सगळेजण घाबरलेल्या अवस्थेतले होते. सम बूस्टेड ऑफ देअर फोरसाइटेडनेस, कॉंग्रॅच्युलेशन देमसेल्व्स ऑन हॅव्हिंग ऑलरेडी टेकन आउट देअर मनी. बघा, म्हणजे काही लोकांना असं वाटत होतं की फोरसाइटेडनेस या शब्दाचा अर्थ काय? दूरदर्शीपणा. भविष्याचा विचार करून आम्ही या बँकेमध्ये पैसेच ठेवले नाहीत, या गोष्टीचा काही जण आनंद सेलिब्रेट करत होते. काही जणांनी या अगोदरच बँकेतून पैसे परत काढून घेतल्याबद्दलचा आनंद साजरा करत होते. ऑर ऑन नेवर हॅव्हिंग पुट एनी इन, ऑदर्स स्पेक्युलेटेड ऑन द रिझन्स फॉर द क्रॅश पुटिंग इट ऑल डाऊन टू एक्सेस इंडल्ज्ड बाय सेठ गोविंदराव. द सेठ हॅड फ्लेड द स्टेट, सेठ वन. काही लोकांनी किंवा त्यांच्यापैकी एकानं असा तर्क लावला की सेठ गोविंदराव या राज्यातून पळालेला आहे. द सेठ हॅड फ्लेड द स्टेट, सेड वन. ही हॅड फ्लेड द कंट्री, सेड अनादर. दुसरा एक म्हणाला की कदाचित हा देश सोडूनच गोविंदराव पळून गेलेला असावा. ही वॉज हायडिंग इन पीपल नगर, सेड द थर्ड. त्यांच्यापैकी तिसरा म्हणाला की कदाचित गोविंदराव पीपल नगरमध्येच कुठंतरी लपून बसलेला असेल. ही हॅड हँग्ड हिमसेल्फ फ्रॉम द टॅमॅरन ट्री, सेड द फोर्थ. चौथा म्हणाला कदाचित त्यानं त्या चिंचेच्या झाडाला फास लावून घेतला असेल. अँड हॅड बीन फाउंड दॅट मॉर्निंग बाय द स्वीपर बॉय. बट नून द स्मॉल बँक, बाय नून द स्मॉल बँक हॅड गॉन थ्रू ऑल इट्स रेडी कॅश अँड द हॅरॅस्ड मॅनेजर वॉज इन अ डिलर. Emergency funds could only be obtained from another bank, some 30 miles distant, and he wasn't sure he could pursue the crowd to wait until then. And there was no way of contacting said Govindram on his houseboat in Kashmir. आता परिस्थिती काय झाली बघा, सगळी लोक बँकेसमोर जमा झालेली होती. आता बँकेमध्ये डिफिकल्ट सिच्युएशन याच्यासाठी आलेला शब्द डिले, DILELLA. द बँक मॅनेजर वॉज इन डिले. इमर्जन्सी फंड कुड ओनली बी ऑब्टेन्ड फ्रॉम अनदर बँक. काही तडजोडीसाठी पैसे, भरपूर पैसे असणारे बँकेतून आणता येणार होते, पण ती बँक पीपलनगर बँकेपासून जवळजवळ 30 मैलाच्या अंतरावरती होती. अँड ही वॉजंट शुअर ही कुड परस्यू द क्राऊड वेट अंटिल देन. तोपर्यंत तो बँक मॅनेजर त्या बँकेसमोर रागावलेल्या लोकांचा जो समूह होता त्या समूहाला थोपवून धरू शकत नव्हता. अँड देअर वॉज नो वे ऑफ कॉन्टॅक्टिंग सेट गोविंदराम. मीन्स द बँक मॅनेजर वॉज ॲक्च्युअली इन दॅट क्रिटिकल कंडिशन देअर. ही वॉज सफरिंग फ्रॉम द मॉब अँड शी couldn't contacting the said or the owner of the bank, said Govindram. People were turned back from the counters and told to return the following day. They did not like the sound of that, and so they gathered outside on the steps of the bank shouting, "Give us our money or we will break in and fetch the said. We know he is hiding in said deposit locker." Mischief makers who didn't have a paisa in the bank joined the crowd and aggravated their mood. The manager stood at the door and tried to placate them. Now look here, what was the condition there? The manager was inside the bank. All the people were in the bank near the counter. They wanted to get back their money. Everyone was asking about their money, but the manager was helpless. He couldn't do anything. He was only trying to explain that bank was not in the bankrupt condition, but he was totally failed to convince that there were some mischief makers were there in that mob. Do you know what is the meaning of word mischief makers? Mischief makers means tawalkhor log. Mischief makers were there in the crowd and they were there only for aggravated their mood. फक्त रंगाचा बेरंग करण्यासाठी काही लोक मॉबमध्ये मिसळत असतात. अशा प्रवृत्तीची काही माणसं त्या मॉबमध्ये होती आणि ते उरलेल्या लोकांना बँक मॅनेजर विरुद्ध भडकवण्याचं काम करत होते. दे वर ट्राईंग टू मेक देम डिसमूड. द मॅनेजर स्टूड ॲट द डोअर अँड ट्राईड टू प्लेकेट them. PLACATE. Placate means राग शांत करणे. मॅनेजर सर्व लोकांचा राग शांत करण्याचा प्रयत्न करत होता. He declared that the bank had plenty of money but no immediate means of collecting it. He urged them to go home and come back the next day. Look here, the manager was trying to convince all the people that the bank is not going to be corrupt. The bank has a lot of money. We will pay your money, but we don't give you your money at that proper time. We will pay your money the next day. But he was totally failed to explain his side. We want it now, chanted some of the crowd. Now, now, now. लोक सगळी अगदी उद्वेगानं म्हणत होती की आम्हाला आमचा पैसा आजच्या आज पाहिजे. अँड अ ब्रिक हर्टल्ड थ्रू द एअर अँड क्रॅश्ड थ्रू द प्लेट ग्लास विंडो ऑफ द पीपल नगर बँक. अशातच काय झालं की एक वीट भिरकण त्या बँकेच्या खिडकीवरती येऊन आपटली. इन दिस वे द डे वॉज ओव्हर. आपण सगळ्यांनी बघितलं की ही जी अफवा होती ही त्या पूर्ण दिवसामध्ये संपूर्ण गावामध्ये पसरलेली होती. What was happened on the next day? Nattu arrived next morning to sweep the steps of the bank. He saw the refuse and the broken glass and the stones cluttering the steps. Raising his hands in a gesture of horror and dispute, he cried, "Hooligans, sons of donkeys, as though it isn't bad enough to be paid late It seems my work has also to be increased. He smote the steps where his broom scattering the refuse. On the next day, Nathu came to his work. There was broom in his hand as usual. Nathu was nervous because of not getting his salary. He was cursing all the peoples. He said, hooligans, H-O-O-L-I-G-A-N, hooligans means gunda pravrattiche lok, sons of donkeys, as though it isn't bad enough to bed be late. It seems my work has also to be increased. एकतर तुम्ही माझे पैसे देऊ शकत नाही की नाही, उलट भरीत भर म्हणून माझं इथं कामच वाढवलेलं आहे. He smote the steps with his broom, scattering the refuse. S-M-O-T, smote means जोर-जोरात ओढणे. Good morning, Nathu, said the washerman's boy, getting down from his bicycle. Are you ready to take up a new job from the first of the next month? You will have to, I suppose, now that the bank is going out of business. Now, ज्या मुलापासून ही बँकरप्टची न्यूज स्प्रेड झाली होती, त्याच मुलाला माहीत नव्हतं की ही अफवा आपल्यामुळेच पसरलेली आहे गावामध्ये. ॲज युजल सीताराम केम टू Nathu. He told him the good news that he was successful in searching the new job for Nathu, and that is why he was looking happy. How's that? said Nathu. Haven't you heard? तुला माहीत नाही का, ही बँक दिवाळखोरीत निघत आहे हे तुला माहीत नाही का, असं नथुला सीतारामने विचारलं. Well, you'd better wait here until half the population of People Nagar arrives to claim their money. And he waved cheerfully. He did not have a bank account and sped away on his bicycle. He was looking too much happy. Why? Because he had no any account in the bank. That is why he was happy. He cheerfully said that he had not any account in that bank. त्याने सांगितलं की थोडा वेळ थांब, काही वेळातच अर्ध गाव या बँकेसमोर जमा झाल्यानंतर ही बँक दिवाळखोरीत निघाल्याबद्दलची बातमी तुझ्या लक्षात येईल. आणि तो आपली सायकल घेऊन तिथून निघून गेला. Nathu went back to the sweeping the steps, muttering to himself. When he had finished his work, he sat down on the highest step to await the arrival of the manager. He was determined to get his pay. Who would have thought the bank would collapse? He said to himself, and looked thoughtfully into the distance. I wonder how it could have happened. Nathu, after departure of Sitaram, Nathu went to his work. He was sweeping the steps. That time he was muttering to himself. And he was now confident about the thing that he will get her salary today from his manager. That time he was determined to get his pay. Who would have thought the bank would collapse? बँक फुटणार असे कुणाला वाटले असेल का? He said himself and looked thoughtfully into the distance. मला प्रश्न पडलाय, हे कसे घडू शकले असेल? इन दिस वे, त्या कथेचा जो हिरो आहे, द मेन कॅरेक्टर आहे नथू, त्याला शेवटपर्यंत या आपल्या एका चुकीच्या वर्तनामुळे ही अफवा गावभर पसरलेली आहे हे त्याच्या लक्षात आलेलं नव्हतं. स्टुडंट्स, थ्रू दिस स्टोरी we got that some people spread the rumors, but we must confirm about the news, whether it is fact or a rumor, and then tell to your friends, neighbors and colleagues. It is the moral of the story, I think.